Hi everybody, welcome one and all to episode 112 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, the 29th of August, if you can believe it, 2019. My name's Carol. I am known as Knitsnpurls over on Ravelry, and I am coming to you from my home in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, where we're having a rather hot, sunny day. The temperature is somewhere around 29 degrees Celsius, which is high 80s if you're more familiar with Fahrenheit. And I think in a way it seems hotter than it really is because we haven't had a really hot summer this year. And we've only had a few days that have actually reached this high in temperature. Plus I turned off the fan that's just over there in order to keep it more quiet while recording. You're welcome, because it's kind of warm in here. But I think it shouldn't be too long an episode. I can suffer a little for the good of the podcast. Welcome to anyone who is checking out the podcast for the first time. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you see and that you'll be back. And of course, welcome back to any returning viewers. Always appreciate you tuning in. And also thank you to all of you who reached out to me this past week. I always appreciate your kind comments and feedback. And that's probably the best part of this whole podcasting experience, is interacting with all of you. So I do have a few projects to share with you this week. Nothing's finished. I have a few works in progress. One in particular has seen a lot of love. The rest I debated whether or not to share with you because they haven't seen a lot of progress, but I thought you might like to see them anyway. I know when I'm watching podcasts and people say, oh, I didn't bother bringing in such and such because I didn't do much work on them, I'm always disappointed because either I don't remember what it looks like or I just want to see it again. So I figured I'd show them to you. A little bit about what I've been reading and of course what's been going on in my life. I actually have an upcoming road trip to talk to you about. I'll do that a little bit later in the podcast. So first things first, Shop the Stash. The Shop the Stash Knit Along, Crochet Along comes to an end this weekend. Knit or crochet anything out of yarn or fiber acquired prior to 2019. Chat about it in the chatter thread and post finished projects in the FO thread. That's over in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. I'll be away this weekend and I'll be completely unplugged for a few days, and so I won't actually be closing those threads until I get home. It'll be sometime Monday afternoon, evening, maybe even Tuesday morning by the time I get around to it. So feel free to keep on posting for your chance to win a prize. I have 5 fabulous prizes to give away, and I thought I would show them to you one last time before I do award them. So first up is the skein of Sweet Georgia Yarns Tough Love Sock in the Modern Mandarin colorway. And I recently knit a pair of socks out of the same colorway in a different yarn base. So if you're curious to see how it looks up when it's knit, check that out. There is also the Artemis Shawlette. This is a kit that I got as part of a club a few years ago, and I decided it was time to send it to a home where it would get more love than I've been giving it all these years. And I also have a couple of project bags that I've sewn up. This one with cupcakes. This one kind of has a bit of a Victorian print. And then finally, a pattern of your choice from Aussie Maria's Ravelry shop, which Maria has generously donated. So go check out her shop. And thanks again, Maria, for your generous donation. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of iced tea again. And let's get on with the knitting. So, the project that has seen the most love this week, because I've given myself a deadline, is the In the Dunes wrap by Helen Stewart, the latest pattern in the 4th Shawl Society collection. It is not quite a rectangular shawl. I meant to look up what the shape is called, and I forgot. But it's 2 straight sides and then 2 sides that go in a diagonal that are parallel to each other. And so, as I explained last week, I decided to frog my Celesterium shawl in order to use the yarn from that project for this project. Not only is it a much more practical shawl that I'll actually get a lot more wear out of, I had found a couple of holes nibbled in my Celesterium, one of which I had successfully mended, the other that I kept putting off mending because I wasn't sure how good a job I'd be able to do. And I actually took that apart, I think it was yesterday. And I think it's a good thing I did because while I was unraveling it, I did find several other spots where the yarn had been nibbled through. Not all the way, but in several cases, 2 out of the 3 strands. So it's just as well that I did that, because it would have been terrible if I'd gone to block the finished shawl and then had the yarn break on me as I applied tension. So I'm paying very good attention to this as I'm knitting it, and I've come across, I think, one more in the skein, one more weak spot that I did take out, break, and then carry on from there. So with any luck, I will spot them all and not have any problems with this one once it's done. So I am somewhere between 20 and 25% done on this project. Just dawned on me I should share with you what the yarn is. So it's this beautiful navy. On the camera it's much brighter than it is in real life. It's quite a flat navy, I would say, a dark navy. It's from Indigo Moon. It is 100% blue-faced Leicester wool in a fingering weight, and it's the Midnight Song colorway. And I've been weighing as I go, and I shouldn't have any trouble having enough yarn for the project, so that's good. So how about I stop talking about it and I start showing you. So this week I was smart and I put point protectors on my needles so that I wouldn't lose any stitches off them. So I have finished the first 2 sections of lace. I am not sure how well it's going to show up. Is it better if I come close, or is it better if I go away? I'm not sure. There are 2 different lace patterns in the shawl that alternate along the length of the shawl. So one is this kind of a wavy chevron pattern, and then it goes into this eyelet, diagonal eyelet pattern. And this one is extremely easy. This whole section just practically knit itself because it's a very, I guess it's a 5-row, yeah, 5-stitch repeat. This one is also very intuitive, but takes a little bit more concentration. I'm not sure if I can, see if I can stretch that out enough. There, that's better. Look at it. So it is coming along nicely. It makes me feel good knowing I'm almost 25% of the way through, because we are leaving for our holiday on the October, I think it's the 17th. So I have until then to finish. So I definitely am feeling optimistic that I will get it done by then. This has been the main focus of my knitting this week. Having said that, I have occasionally worked on some other things too. Let's see, where'd they go? Or where did it go? Let's show you this one. This is my Storm Shawl by Hohi Locatelli. And honestly, I did not pick this back up. Since I've last recorded, I haven't worked on it until last night and a little bit this morning. I am knitting it from this beautiful, beautiful skein of yarn. Love, love, love this yarn. It's from Fleece Artist, their National Parks collection. It's Merino Slim, so it's like a single ply, similar to Tosh Merino Light. And it's in the Banff, Alberta colorway. You can see that colorway there. And as I mentioned last week, I think I did anyway, I ended up recording that episode twice, so I'm not sure exactly what I said. This blue is very reminiscent of the glacier-fed rivers and lakes that are in Banff National Park. And then, of course, you've got this beautiful green for the trees. All right, so I'm inserting this little section here because I forgot to show you the storm shawl after I talked about the yarn and the pattern. I didn't even show you what I had done. So last week I had knit up to this section here, and since then I've added a row of eyelets right there, and I've done another row of long elongated stitches. And so not tons more that I've done, but enough that it's growing. And I still love it. I'm worried I'm going to knock these stitches off. But you can see it is a crescent shaped shawl. And I just think it and the yarn suit each other very well. So I'm going to be taking this on an upcoming road trip, and I think that'll be a good thing to work on in the hotel at the end of the day, and then once we reach our destination, visiting with relatives. So I'll talk about that more coming up in the later section of the podcast, which I've already recorded, but you will hear it soon. So back to the regular, my original recording. And then I did a little bit of work on the Cornish cream tea socks by Helen Stewart. This is part of the Handmade Sock Society, the second one, I think. Black Cat Custom Yarn, Luxury Sock in Pixie Dust is what I chose to knit them in. And last week I showed you I was partway down the heel flap of the first sock, and I have since finished the heel flap, picked up for the gusset, and have worked one pattern repeat. So it's a little bit further than it was last week. So that's coming along very nicely. I really am so happy with my choice for this yarn. I think it is just so pretty. Once again, phone's ringing. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. I guess technically you're not really being interrupted because this will come right after the phone rang. It was better than letting it ring and ring, and I had a feeling I knew who it might be anyway and wanted to answer or wanted to talk to that person. So here I am back, feeling a little bit distracted, so I'll try and stay on track. So I think what I was just saying about these socks is just how happy I am with how they are turning out so far. Just a lovely stitch pattern, and I love the just nice soft colors in the yarn. So those are going well, if not quickly, lately this week. Yeah, so that's it as far as official projects. Last week I talked to you a little bit about some socks that I'm designing. Okay, let's back up and say I'm sorry. I guess it's another apology. I do not have my first pattern ready to be released yet. I was really hoping things would come together for that this week. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. Well, it hasn't happened by now. It's not going to happen, obviously, by the time you see this podcast. And depending on circumstances, may not happen next week either. I'll talk a little bit about that later. So it'll happen when it happens. Eventually it will all unfold. In the meantime, I am working on my second sock design, and I did show that to you last week. It's this. I have not actually Kitchener the toe yet because I am not 100% sure I'm going to keep this. It's in case I want to make the cuff a little longer, or if I want to change this into a short row heel. I haven't decided yet. And so I'm just keeping that intact, that yarn intact for now. So I did cast on the second one. Did a pattern repeat there. The yarn is actually from a set of sock blanks from Ocean Wind Knits. They're her sushi socks. And I wound off the yarn and gave it a soak to release some of the kinkiness from having been knit up in the sock blank. And I'm finding it much easier to work with it that way, and the stitch definition is better. This is color 11. So what I also mentioned last week is that I was wrestling a bit with how to make the pattern work in a larger size. So this is a 10 stitch pattern repeat, and so it seems logical. This is 6 repeats around, and that works out great to have 3 repeats on the instep, and then 3. Okay, let's start that over. It works great that when you get to the instep, you can basically divide the stitches in half and have 3 pattern repeats go across the instep. The difficulty with just doing, say, 7 repeats around for a larger size is that you end up with 3.5 stitches or 3.5 repeats on the instep, and it didn't really work out so well because you have to be able to balance the number of increases and decreases in order to make the stitch pattern work. And I fiddled around with different ways that I could do that. And then I had a brainwave, and I thought, actually I'm going to leave this on here. Then I had a brainwave, and I thought, well, what if I just tweaked the stitch pattern and made it a 12 stitch pattern, in which case I could once again put 6 repeats all around the leg, and then it very easily divides for the instep. And so that's what I did. So I'm currently testing and knitting the sample for the large size. So I'm doing that in Black Cat Custom Yarn Luxury Sock also, just like my cream tea socks. And this is in the Golgothan colorway. What I thought is, this is obviously a very feminine version of the sock with the pink, but I thought this would actually make a really good men's sock too. Even though it has some holes, it's a lace pattern. I didn't think it was too feminine, and I asked my husband if that was a pattern he would wear, and he said he would. And so I decided to knit up a pair of large ones that would fit him in this brown color. And so once again I have just worked the cuff and 1 pattern repeat what I did this time is I increased the, I tweaked the stitch pattern so that I have 12 stitches in the repeat and 20 rows instead of 10 stitches and 16 rows. And I basically added an extra stitch to each half of this, right in the middle there. That's the stitch, the pattern. Hang on, let me see if I can. That's the pattern repeat there. And so I added a stitch to each side of it, which meant I had to add an extra 2 rows in order for it to work. So they're not going to be exactly the same. You will see that the motif on this one is going to be a little bit smaller than the motif on that one, but they are the same basic stitch pattern. So that's how I solved that problem. Hopefully all the numbers work out and that it will be work up successfully in this larger size. Time will tell. So that's what I've been up to as far as design work goes. And I actually also took the time to really thoroughly write out this pattern as it stands now, so that when it comes time to have someone else test them and write up the pattern for publication and stuff, a big chunk of that's already done. So that feels good. But you know, it all takes time. Time I'd rather be spending knitting, to be perfectly honest. And I spent a whole day fiddling with that large sock, trying to make numbers work with 7 repeats, and it was really difficult. I had it down to where it could work, but then in order to do it was so complicated. You don't want it to be complicated for the knitter. You want it to be fairly straightforward, and it just wasn't. And I knew there had to be a better way. So I was really happy to sort of have a brainwave and make it work then. My ice is melting. Condensation dripping all over my bare legs. I'm in shorts here, so it's kind of cold on the legs. I'm continuing to read the Mousetrap and Other Plays. So I've made my way through 3 out of, I think, 7 or 8. I think 8 plays in here. Interesting Appointment with Death. It had a different ending than the book. So that was, because I remembered who done it from the first time when I read the book, not that long ago. So it didn't turn out the same way. But then the next one I read was The Hollow, which I also read not that long ago, and I had remembered who had committed the murder. So the next one that I've come to is actually The Mousetrap. And I know I have read it before, don't remember anything at all about the storyline, have no clue who the murderer is, so it will be like reading it fresh for the first time, even though I know I've read it at least once. So I think that's like the longest running play in London anyway, I think. Anyway, that's what I've been reading. As I say, I don't love plays as much as a novel or a short story, but I still getting some enjoyment out of it. That just comes to what's going on in my life. So I told you last week that we were having dinner with my son's girlfriend's parents. We were meeting them for the first time. So we had originally the idea was to go out to a restaurant, but then they ended up inviting us to come have dinner at their house. And we had a very nice evening, very easy people to know. There was no lull in the conversation, that's for sure. And we stayed quite late and then went from there to my sister and brother-in-law's house to help my brother-in-law celebrate his retirement. Unfortunately, by the time we got there, everyone but their kids had left. But we got a chance just to have a really good visit with my sister and brother-in-law and the kids. And I just regretted we didn't get to see my brother-in-law's family because I haven't seen them for quite a while. But we did have the other commitment first, and so they knew that we would be coming afterwards, you know, whenever we could make it. So just had to be that way. So went golfing on Sunday, had a really nice day. We golfed not bad. I didn't lose a ball all day, so that was good because last time we golfed, I lost track of how many balls that I lost. Yeah, it was a nice day, just perfect weather, not too hot, not too cold, and yeah, we just had a really lovely day together. And then yeah, this week's just been kind of normal. Nothing special. We are going tomorrow after work up to the cabin for the long weekend. It's Labor Day here in Canada, so we'll be gone till Monday. I have one of my sisters and her husband are up there right now until Sunday, and my mom, of course, is there too, so we'll have a good weekend. I'm happy we get to go up again before the end of the summer, because the summer is just about over. And then road trip, and I'm doing the driving, so there's not going to be much knitting time, but earlier this year, my mom had talked to me about potentially driving her to Edmonton, Alberta, which is the province next to ours. And we're going to go visit my aunt and uncle. This is my dad's older brother. And he and his wife and my mom are the only ones left of what were 8, 4 siblings and their spouses. And it's this family that has the property all together where we go to our cabin. And it used to be that my aunt and uncle would come every summer and spend the whole, like from May till September at the cabin. And my dad would do the same. And my mom would stay home for the spring part, but then eventually join my dad in the summer when all her activities were done. And my other aunt and uncle, my dad's oldest brother and his wife, they only lived about an hour and a half drive from where the cabins are. And so they would come back and forth, you know, various weekends over the summer. So there were always people at the property and things going on. And my dad died 4 years ago, and that first summer my aunt and uncle found it very quiet. It just wasn't the same without my dad there. And since then, partly because of that and partly because of my uncle's health, they've only come out for quick visits in the next couple of years following. And my oldest uncle passed away 10 months after my dad did, and then his wife, my aunt, passed away just over a year later. So it's just my mom and my aunt and uncle that are left. And my mom had talked to me earlier this year, I think it was maybe back in May or June, and asked me that if my aunt and uncle did not come out to the cabin at all this summer, if I would consider driving her to Edmonton to visit them. She's just worried that, well, she thinks this is quite possibly the last chance she'll have to have a visit with them. And they have been corresponding weekly, my aunt and my mom, right back and forth, like every week. And they've done this for countless years. And yeah, my mom was quite emotional about it last time we were talking about it. She's pretty stoic, so to see that side of her was something, you know, made an impression. So anyway, I did tell her I would do it. So I was thinking it was going to be a couple of weeks from now, but as it turned out, it's going to be next week, and we're squeezing it in between an appointment I have on Thursday and an appointment she has the following Tuesday. So I'm going to go to my appointment Thursday morning, head up, pick my mom up, and then we'll go part way the first day, stay overnight in a motel, and then get to Edmonton the following day. And then on the way home, we'll do the same. We'll stop part way, sleep over, and then I will leave early enough to get her to her appointment on the Tuesday, and then I'll come home the next day. So I'm going to be gone a week. Now, part of our little journey is actually going to take us through, on the way there, we're going to go through Jasper National Park, which is north of Banff National Park. And while we will not actually go through the town of Banff this trip, we will be driving through the park. And so I'm going to take this shawl with me. And did I even show this? I don't even think I showed you the shawl. Did I? I know I showed you the yarn. Oh, that is ridiculous. I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to look at this when I'm editing, and I might have to insert a little section. But I have a feeling that I didn't even show you the shawl. It's been that kind of day. In any case, that's what I'm going to be up to. So I will record at least a brief episode before I leave, and then we'll see how things are once I get back home, if I can squeeze one in on the Thursday or Friday when I get back. So yeah, crazy. All right, something good. Seems like it's often food things, but we were grocery shopping last weekend, and prune plums are out. Love this time of year. Prune plums are one of my absolute most favorite fruits. When I was a kid, we lived across the street from a woman who had a plum tree in her side yard, and we used to just go get the plums off the ground and just eat as many as we wanted to. And then when we moved into this house, we planted 2 plum trees, and they have since fallen over, blown over. Actually, the last one was the same year my dad died, which was kind of significant in that he used to love these 2, and we'd always, when they were ripe, like get a big bag of them set aside for him, and he would enjoy them too. So it always kills me to have to pay for them now, because we used to have more than we could ever eat ourselves. A friend of mine that used to come and pick them, and she and her mom would make jam out of them. So she kind of missed the source once the tree blew over too. So anyway, prune plums, love, love, love them. So I will have plenty of those in the next few weeks that they are ripe. And on that note, I want to say goodbye. I think it's time, don't you? Sorry, it's been kind of a scattered episode. It's just about 4 o'clock, so I will do my best to get this up and running tonight. If not, it will be live sometime tomorrow before I leave. And I think before I actually put all the camera away and stuff, I'd better record a little section about the storm shawl, because I have a feeling that I didn't even show it to you. Have a great week. See you probably Wednesday next week. So take care until then. Bye.